The Velthari Dominion had been conquering worlds for longer than most species had existed. Their empire stretched across 17 star systems, and each one had fallen the same way. They would find a young world, watch it grow, and then return when the time was right. It was simple. It was efficient. It had never failed. Admiral Kira stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Blade, and looked at the holographic display floating before him. A small blue planet rotated slowly in the projection. It had one moon, one yellow star, and billions of primitive life forms crawling across its surface. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. To the Dominion, it was simply target 18. Show me their progress, Kirith said to his second-in-command. Lieutenant Voss pressed a few controls, and the display changed. Images appeared showing metal machines flying through the air, primitive vehicles moving on wheels, tall structures made of glass and stone, radio waves bouncing between towers. They have achieved basic flight and radio communication, Voss reported. Their space exploration is limited. They have reached their moon, but nothing beyond. They have no faster than light travel, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Kirith made a sound that was almost like laughter. Another easy harvest. The Dominion had a system for this. They would arrive with overwhelming force, disable any military resistance within hours, and then establish control. The conquered species would be put to work in mines, factories, and farms across the empire. It was not cruelty in their eyes. It was simply the natural order. The strong ruled, and the weak served. How long until we reach their system? Kirith asked. At current speed, approximately 3 standard months. Good. Inform the High Council that Target 18 will be secured on schedule. Far across the galaxy, on the small blue planet that did not know what was coming, life continued as normal. Dr. Katie Morrison sat in her chair at the Westbrook Radio Astronomy Observatory in New Mexico. The facility was small compared to others around the world, but she loved it here. The desert was quiet at night, and the sky was filled with more stars than most people ever got to see. Her job was simple but important. She listened to the universe. Giant radio dishes pointed at the sky captured signals from distant stars, galaxies, and cosmic events. Most of what she heard was natural noise. Pulsars spinning, gases collapsing, the echo of the Big Bang itself. But sometimes, just sometimes, she hoped to hear something else. A patter, a message, proof that humanity was not alone. Tonight was like any other night. Katie adjusted her headphones and watched the data scroll across her screen. Static, noise, nothing unusual. The door behind her opened, and her colleague Ben Harris walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was a tall man with messy brown hair and a permanent look of exhaustion. They had been working together for 3 years now, and he had become something like a brother to her. Anything interesting out there? He asked, handing her a cup. Same as always. The universe is talking, but it's not saying anything I can understand. Ben sat down at his own station and sighed. You know, sometimes I think this job would be more exciting if we actually found something. Katie smiled. Be careful what you wish for. They worked in comfortable silence for the next hour. The machines hummed. The data flowed. Outside, the desert wind blew sand against the walls of the building. Neither of them noticed the faint signal that passed through their equipment at exactly 2:47 in the morning. It was buried in the noise, dismissed by the computers as natural interference. But it was not natural. It was the first scout probe of the Velthari Dominion, sweeping through the solar system and sending its findings back to the fleet. 12 light-years away, Admiral Kirith received the probe's report. Earth's defenses were exactly as expected. Primitive, weak, unaware. He, smiled, and gave the order to increase speed down in the capital city of the Dominion. The High Council met in their great chamber to discuss the upcoming conquest. The room was vast, with walls made of dark metal and a ceiling that displayed the stars in real time. 12 council members sat in a circle, each one representing a different sector of the empire. Target 18 has been approved for harvesting, the eldest member announced. Admiral Kirath will lead the third expansion fleet. Estimated time to completion is 6 standard weeks after arrival. What do we know about this species? Another council member asked. A holographic image of a human appeared in the center of the room. It was based on intercepted broadcasts and showed a creature with 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft skin. It looked fragile. They call themselves humans, a military advisor explained. They are carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, and have moderate intelligence. They have developed nuclear fission and early computing technology. Their societies are divided into competing nations that frequently engage in conflict with each other. There was a murmur of amusement around the council. They fight among themselves? One member asked. How typical of young species. Indeed. This internal division will make conquest easier. They have no unified defense, no common leadership, and no awareness of threats from beyond their world. The eldest council member nodded. Then it is settled. Earth will become the 18th addition to our empire. Admiral Kirath has full authority to proceed. The decision was made in less than an hour. There was no debate, no hesitation, no concern. The Dominion had done this 17 times before, and there was no reason to think this time would be any different, but far away. On the small blue planet that had been marked for conquest, humanity continued to live, work, dream, and fight. They looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. They sent probes into the darkness, carrying messages of peace and friendship. They built weapons capable of destroying their own world many times over. And they had no idea that in 3 short months, everything would change. Katie Morrison finished her coffee and stretched her tired muscles. The sun was beginning to rise over the desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Another quiet night, she said to Ben. Maybe tomorrow will be different, he replied. She laughed and gathered her things. You always say that. But this time, he was right. Tomorrow would be different. And the tomorrow after that would be unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The Dominion was coming. And Earth, for better or worse, was about to discover that the universe was far more crowded, far more dangerous, and far more terrifying than anyone had ever imagined. The countdown had begun. The Dominion scout ships arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system on a cold morning in space. There were 3 of them, small and fast, designed to watch without being seen. Their mission was simple. Observe the target world. Confirm the old data. Report back to Admiral Kirath. Commander Thren led the scouting team. He was young for his rank, eager to prove himself, and confident that this mission would be easy. Earth was a primitive world. The humans had barely touched their own moon. What could possibly be interesting about them? Begin deploying observation satellites, he ordered. I want full coverage of the inner system within 2 cycles. His crew obeyed without question. Small drones launched from the scout ships and scattered in different directions. They would take positions around the sun, the gas giants, and the rocky inner planets. From there, they would watch everything the humans did. For the first few days, the data was exactly what Thren expected. The humans went about their lives with no idea they were being watched. They flew their primitive aircraft. They launched their chemical rockets. They broadcast endless radio and television signals into space, completely unaware that anyone might be listening. Thren found it almost sad. These creatures had so much potential, but they would never get the chance to use it. Soon, the Dominion fleet would arrive. and Earth would become just another conquered world. Then, the satellites picked up something unexpected. It was a small object, drifting through the outer reaches of the solar system. At first, Thren thought it was a piece of natural debris, but when the satellites scanned it more closely, they found something strange. The object was artificial. It was made of metal and carried a golden disc attached to its side. "What is that?" Thren asked, leaning forward in his command chair. His science officer studied the readings with growing confusion. "It appears to be a probe of some kind, Commander. Very old, very primitive. It has been traveling through space for decades." "A probe? Where did it come from?" "Earth. Based on its trajectory, it was launched over 40 years ago." Thren frowned. Why would a species that had barely reached their own moon send a probe so far into space? It made no sense. The thing could not carry a crew. It could not land anywhere useful. It was just floating through the darkness, going nowhere. "Can you access its data?" he asked. "I believe so. The technology is simple enough." The science officer worked quickly, and soon the contents of the golden disc appeared on the main screen. Thren watched in silence as images flashed before him. Photographs of humans in different environments. Mountains, oceans, cities, and forests. Diagrams of human biology. Mathematical equations. Musical recordings. And then came the part that made Thren's blood run cold. The probe contained a map. Not just any map, but a precise diagram showing the exact location of Earth in the galaxy. The humans had included the position of their sun relative to 14 different pulsars, creating a cosmic address that anyone with basic astronomy could follow. They had told the universe exactly where they lived. Thren stared at the screen for a long moment, unable to speak. In all his years of service, in all the worlds the Dominion had conquered, he had never seen anything like this. No species in their right mind would broadcast their location to the unknown darkness of space. It was suicide. It was an invitation to every predator in the galaxy, unless it was something else entirely. "Commander?" his science officer said nervously. "What do we do?" Thren thought about the question carefully. The logical explanation was that the humans were simply naive. They had sent this probe hoping to find friends among the stars, never imagining that those friends might be hungry wolves. But another thought crept into his mind. What if the humans knew exactly what they were doing? What if this was not an invitation to friendship, but a challenge? What if they were saying, "Here we are. Come and try to take us if you dare"? No species that feared extinction would do something so reckless. Only a species that was confident in its own survival would openly announce its location to the universe. What did the humans know that the Dominion did not? Thren made his decision. He transmitted the probe's data to Admiral Kirith with a priority alert, along with his own assessment of the situation. He recommended caution. Something about this world did not feel right. The response came back within hours. Admiral Kirith thanked him for his concern, but dismissed his worries as foolish. The humans were primitive. The probe was clearly a sign of their ignorance, not their strength. The invasion would proceed as planned, but Thren was not the only one who had seen the signal. The Dominion's intelligence network was vast, but it was not secure. Within days, copies of the probe's data had leaked to the other major powers of the galaxy. The Syndicate of Rel, a loose alliance of merchant species, received it first. Then, the Corvani Collective, an ancient civilization that had survived for millennia by hiding from stronger empires. And finally, the mysterious archive worlds, keepers of knowledge dating back to the beginning of recorded history. Each of them reacted in their own way. The Syndicate saw opportunity. If the humans were truly as reckless as the probe suggested, they might be useful trading partners, or dangerous enemies. Either way, they deserved further study. The Kovani were terrified. Their entire culture was built on secrecy and survival. The idea that any species would willingly reveal its location was unthinkable to them. They immediately recalled all ships from Dominion space and began strengthening their own hidden defenses. The archive worlds were the most disturbed of all. Their ancient records contained stories of only one other species that had ever broadcast its location to the galaxy. They were called the Architects, and they had been so powerful that they created artificial stars and moved entire planets with their technology. They had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind ruins that no one could understand. The archivists did not believe the humans were architects, but they could not explain the similarity in behavior. Either the humans were cosmically stupid, or they were operating on a level of thinking that no one else could comprehend. The galaxy watched and waited. Rumors spread through trade routes and military channels. A strange new species had been discovered. They had broadcast their location to the universe. The Dominion was going to conquer them. But for the first time in centuries, not everyone was sure that the Dominion would succeed. And on Earth, life continued as normal. Katie Morrison listened to the stars. Ben Harris brought her coffee. The sun rose and set over the New Mexico desert. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a fleet of warships continued to accelerate toward humanity's home. The signal had been sent long ago. Now, at last, something had answered, and the answer was coming fast. The news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. In trading posts and military bases, in government halls and secret meeting rooms, everyone was talking about the same thing. A primitive species on a small blue planet had done the unthinkable. They had told the universe exactly where to find them. The Corvani Collective was the first to officially respond. Their highkeeper, an ancient being named Sereth, called an emergency session of their council. The Corvani had survived 3 extinction-level wars by one simple strategy: stay hidden. Their homeworld's location was the most closely guarded secret in their civilization. Ships that traveled too close to their territory were quietly destroyed. Their very existence was a rumor to most of the galaxy. And now there was a species that had put their home address on a golden disk and thrown it into space. "This is madness," Sereth said to the council. "No species does this. It goes against every instinct of survival." "Perhaps they are simply young and foolish," one advisor suggested. "Many young species make mistakes." Mistakes? They included diagrams of their biology. They showed images of their population centers. They broadcast music and greetings in dozens of languages. This was not a mistake. This was deliberate. The council fell silent. Sereth was right. No species could accidentally reveal so much about themselves. The humans had chosen to do this. The question was why. "There are only 2 possibilities," Sereth continued. "Either the humans are so naive that they do not understand the danger they have invited, or they are so confident in their own power that they welcome it." "The Dominion believes they are naive," another advisor said. "They are proceeding with the invasion." Sereth made a sound of disgust. "The Dominion is arrogant. They have conquered weak worlds for so long that they have forgotten what true strength looks like. What if they are wrong about the humans? What if those creatures are not prey but predators?" The council could not answer. No one wanted to imagine what that might mean. In the end, the Kovani made a decision that shocked the galaxy. They withdrew all diplomatic contact with the Dominion and sealed their borders. They would watch the invasion from a safe distance. If the Dominion succeeded, then the humans were indeed weak and all was well. If the Dominion failed, then the Kovani wanted to be as far away as possible. The Syndicate of Rel had a different reaction. They were merchants and traders, always looking for opportunity in chaos. Their leader, a cunning being named Main Broker Vex, saw the situation as a potential goldmine. "The Dominion will crush the humans," he told his advisors. They always do. But after the conquest, there will be new resources, new labor, and new markets. We should position ourselves to profit from this. And if the Dominion fails? One advisor asked. Vex laughed. The Dominion has never failed. But even if they did, it would only mean the humans are more valuable than we thought. A species strong enough to defeat the Dominion would be worth befriending. Either way, we win. The Syndicate sent observation ships to the edge of Earth's solar system. They would watch the invasion and prepare to move in afterwards, ready to pick up the pieces. But not everyone was so calm. The archive worlds were the oldest civilization in the known galaxy. They had survived, not by fighting or hiding, but by collecting knowledge. Their vast libraries contained records of species that had risen and fallen millions of years before the Dominion existed. They had seen empires come and go. They had witnessed wonders and horrors beyond imagination, and they were deeply troubled by the human signal. Elder Keth, the oldest of the archivists, spent days studying the data from the Golden Probe. She compared it to ancient records, looking for patterns, looking for explanations. What she found disturbed her more than anything she had seen in centuries. There was another species that broadcast its location, she told her fellow elders. Only one, in all of recorded history. The architects. The other elders murmured in surprise. The architects were legends. They had existed at the dawn of galactic civilization, building structures that still defied explanation. Dyson spheres around distant stars. Ring worlds the size of planets. Gates that could transport ships across thousands of light years in an instant, and then they had vanished. No one knew why. No one knew where they had gone. They had simply disappeared, leaving their creations behind like abandoned toys. Surely you are not suggesting the humans are architects, one elder said. They are primitives. They can barely reach their own moon. I am not suggesting anything, Keth replied. I am simply observing a pattern. The architects broadcast their location because they feared nothing. They were the most powerful beings in existence. Perhaps the humans know something we do not. Perhaps they have a reason for their confidence. Or perhaps they are simply foolish. Perhaps. But I would not bet on it. The Dominion is about to make first contact with an unknown variable. History teaches us that such moments rarely go as expected. The archive worlds sent no ships to observe the invasion. They simply watched from their distant libraries, recording everything, preparing to add another chapter to the long story of the galaxy. Meanwhile, Admiral Kirith pushed his fleet harder. He had heard the rumors spreading through the galactic networks, and they annoyed him deeply. The other powers were acting like the humans were some kind of threat. It was ridiculous. He had conquered a dozen species more advanced than these creatures. Earth would be no different. Increase speed to maximum, he ordered. We arrive ahead of schedule. His crew obeyed, and the Eternal Blade roared through space faster than ever before. On Earth, the days passed like any other. People went to work, spent time with their families, and worried about ordinary problems. Wars and politics filled the news. Climate change worried scientists. Children played in parks and dreamed of growing up. Katie Morrison continued her work at the observatory, searching for signals that might prove humanity was not alone. She had no idea that her answer was already coming. It was moving through the darkness between stars, armed with weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. The galaxy held its breath. The Dominion was coming. And soon, everyone would discover what kind of species humanity truly was. The hysteria was just beginning. The Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. 147 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and arranged themselves in a perfect formation. Admiral Kirith stood on the command deck of the Eternal Blade. and watched the small blue planet grow larger on his display. "Beautiful," he said quietly. "It will make a fine addition to the Empire." Lieutenant Voss approached with the final tactical reports. "All ships are in position, Admiral. Ground forces are ready for deployment. We can begin the invasion within 6 hours." "Excellent. Have the scouts detected any response from the planet?" "None, sir. They appear unaware of our presence." Kirith smiled. This was going to be even easier than he had expected. The humans had no idea what was coming. By the time they realized they were under attack, it would already be over, but in the quiet desert of New Mexico, something unusual was happening. Katie Morrison was working the night shift when her equipment began to pick up strange readings. At first, she thought it was a malfunction. The numbers made no sense. Massive gravity signatures had appeared beyond the orbit of Neptune. Objects moving information. Objects that had not been there an hour ago. "Ben," she called to her colleague. "Come look at this." Ben Harris walked over and stared at the screen. His face went pale. "That's not natural," he said. "Those readings suggest something enormous. Multiple somethings. Moving toward the inner system." "I know." Katie's hands were shaking as she reached for the phone. "I need to call someone. The government, NASA, someone." Within an hour, observatories around the world were pointing their instruments at the same region of space. Satellites adjusted their orbits to get a better view. Military radar systems detected energy signatures unlike anything they had ever recorded. By morning, every major government on Earth had confirmed the impossible truth. An alien fleet had entered the solar system. The news broke across every channel on the planet. Some people screamed in terror. Others celebrated in the streets, convinced that friendly visitors had finally arrived. Religious leaders gave urgent sermons. Stock markets crashed. Phone lines jammed as billions of people tried to reach their loved ones. And in secure bunkers beneath the capitals of the world, military commanders faced a terrible question. What do we do now? Captain Nathan Cole was not a famous man. He had spent most of his career in the United States Navy, commanding submarines and working on classified projects that he could never discuss with his family. But today, he found himself in a position he had never imagined. The leaders of the world had agreed on one thing. They needed someone to speak for humanity. And for reasons he did not fully understand, they had chosen him. "You want me to talk to them?" He asked the faces on the video screens before him. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals from a dozen countries stared back at him. "You are calm under pressure," the American president explained. "You do not panic. You do not bluff. We need someone who can deliver a message without showing fear. That is you." Cole took a deep breath. "What message do you want me to send?" "Tell them to leave. And if they don't?" The president looked at the other world leaders. One by one, they nodded. "Then we fight." Cole understood. He had always known somewhere deep inside that this day might come. Humanity had been looking at the stars for centuries, wondering if they were alone. Now they had their answer. And the answer was hostile. He walked to the communications center and sat down before the microphone. The message would be broadcast on every frequency that the alien fleet was known to monitor. It would be translated into mathematical codes and simple language, patterns that any intelligent species should be able to understand. Cole cleared his throat and began to speak. "This is Captain Nathan Cole of Earth's Unified Defense Council. We have detected your fleet. We are aware of your intentions. We offer you this single chance to withdraw peacefully. If you do not, we will defend ourselves with every weapon at our disposal. This is not a threat. It is a statement of fact. You have 24 hours to respond." He released the transmit button and sat back in his chair. The message was sent. Now all they could do was wait. On the Eternal Blade, Admiral Kirith listened to the human transmission with amusement. The creature's voice was steady, but its words were absurd. Defend themselves? With what? Chemical rockets and nuclear bombs? Against a fleet that had conquered 17 star systems. They are brave, I will give them that, he said to Lieutenant Voss. Foolish, but brave. Shall we respond, Admiral? Kirith considered the question. The proper protocol was to demand surrender before beginning an invasion. It was more efficient that way. Less damage to the infrastructure that the Dominion would soon control. Yes, send them a message. Tell them that resistance is futile. Tell them their world now belongs to the Velthari Dominion. Tell them that cooperation will be rewarded and defiance will be punished. And tell them that their 24 hours means nothing. We will reach their planet in 6. The message was transmitted. Across Earth, billions of people heard the cold, translated words of the alien admiral. He was not here to negotiate. He was not here to make friends. He was here to conquer. For a moment, humanity stood frozen. The reality of the situation finally sank in. This was not a movie. This was not a drill. An alien empire was about to invade their world, and there was no cavalry coming to save them. And then something remarkable happened. Around the world, people stopped panicking and started preparing. Soldiers reported to their bases. Pilots climbed into their aircraft. Civilians gathered supplies and formed neighborhood defense groups. Scientists worked through the night to understand the alien technology. Hackers tried to probe the enemy communications. No one gave up. No one surrendered. The message from humanity was clear, even without words. You want our planet? Come and take it. Admiral Kirith watched the human activity with growing confusion. The species was supposed to be divided. The species was supposed to be weak. But instead of fighting each other, they were uniting. Instead of begging for mercy, they were building barricades. For the first time since the campaign began, a small seed of doubt entered his mind. What kind of species is this? He pushed the thought away and gave the order to advance. The fleet accelerated toward Earth, weapons charging. Soldiers preparing. First contact was about to become first combat, and humanity was ready. The first wave of Dominion fighters entered Earth's atmosphere at dawn. They came down over every continent, expecting to meet token resistance before the ground forces landed. Admiral Kirith had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. A few explosions, some scattered gunfire, and then surrender. But Earth was not like the other worlds. Over the skies of North America, a squadron of Dominion atmospheric craft encountered something they had never seen before. Human fighter jets rose to meet them, moving at incredible speeds, firing missiles that locked onto their targets with terrifying accuracy. The Dominion pilots were confused. These weapons were primitive. Chemical propellants. Explosive warheads. Nothing compared to the plasma cannons and energy shields of the Empire. Yet somehow, they were effective. The missiles moved faster than expected. The explosions were more powerful than predicted. Within minutes, half the squadron was destroyed. This is impossible, one pilot transmitted before his ship was torn apart by a direct hit. They are using guided projectiles. How are they so accurate? The answer was simple, though the Dominion would not understand it for a long time. Humanity had been fighting wars in its own atmosphere for over a century. They had developed weapons specifically designed to shoot down fast-moving objects in the sky. They had practiced killing each other so thoroughly that killing aliens was almost easy by comparison. On the ground, things went even worse. Dominion soldiers were elite warriors by galactic standards. They were genetically enhanced for strength and endurance. They carried energy weapons that could vaporize organic matter in a single shot. They wore armor that could stop most projectile weapons, but they had never fought on a death world before. Earth's gravity was stronger than most habitable planets in the galaxy. The Dominion soldiers found themselves moving slower than normal, their muscles straining against a weight they were not designed to carry. The air was thick with oxygen, a reactive gas that made fires burn hotter and explosions more violent. The sun was brighter than they expected, hurting their sensitive eyes. And then there were the humans themselves. A squad of Dominion soldiers landed in a small town in the American Midwest. They expected the civilians to flee or surrender. Instead, a man in overalls came out of his house carrying a long metal tube. He pointed it at the lead soldier and pulled a trigger. A moment later, the soldier's armor was torn open by a spray of metal fragments. The man had killed an elite Dominion warrior with a weapon designed for hunting animals. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Farmers with rifles, city dwellers with handguns, teenagers with homemade explosives. The humans did not need advanced technology to fight. They had been perfecting the art of violence since the dawn of their species, and they refused to stop. Lieutenant Vuss sent increasingly desperate reports to Admiral Kirith. Ground forces were taking heavy casualties. Air support was being shot down faster than it could be deployed. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were counterattacking. "This makes no sense," Kirith said, watching the battle reports with growing horror. "They are dying by the thousands. Why do they keep fighting?" He did not understand. The Dominion conquered species that valued survival above all else. When faced with overwhelming force, rational beings surrendered to live another day. But the humans did not seem to care about living. They cared about winning. A transmission came in from one of the ground commanders. His voice was shaking. "Admiral, we have captured several human prisoners. We tried to interrogate them. One of them was missing an arm. He had bandaged the wound himself and kept fighting. Another was old, far past fighting age, yet she attacked my soldiers with a cooking knife. When we restrained her, she spat in my face and said something in her language. Our translator says it means, 'We will never stop.'" Kira stared at the screen in silence. What kind of species is this? The answer came from an unexpected source. One of his science officers had been studying Earth's history through intercepted data. He approached the Admiral with a pale face. "Sir, I understand now why they fight this way. Explain." Humans have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. They have fought over territory, resources, religion, ideology, and sometimes for no reason at all. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and they came close to using them on multiple occasions. They have survived plagues, famines, ice ages, and mass extinctions. Their species evolved as a persistence predator, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They do not give up, Admiral. They cannot give up. It is not in their biology. Kirith felt cold spreading through his body. What are you saying? I am saying that we have invaded a world of survivors. They are not afraid of us because they have been afraid of worse things their entire existence. They are not discouraged by our weapons because they have weapons just as terrible. And they are not demoralized by casualties because they have always accepted death as the price of victory. The Admiral looked at the battle maps. His forces were being pushed back on every front. Human resistance was growing, not shrinking. And somewhere in the chaos, his soldiers reported that the humans had captured 3 Dominion transport ships. They were learning to use alien technology. In that moment, Kirith made the hardest decision of his career. He ordered a full retreat. The Dominion fleet fled Earth's solar system, leaving behind thousands of dead soldiers and the wreckage of their failed invasion. Kirith himself barely escaped, his flagship damaged. His pride destroyed as the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. He composed his final report to the High Council. Recommendation: classify the Sol system as a Category Omega exclusion zone. The species known as humans are not to be provoked, contacted, or given any reason to leave their world. They survived their own extinction-level weapons, their own toxic atmosphere, and their own endless internal wars. They did not fear us. They were not discouraged by our strength. Some of them were smiling during combat. I do not know what created humanity, but I am now certain of one truth. They were not meant for the rest of us to encounter. Avoid this species at all costs. The High Council sealed Earth's records that same day. The other galactic powers followed within weeks. A new symbol appeared on every major star map, a small red circle around a yellow star on the outer arm of the galaxy. Warning: Death World. Do not approach. On Earth. Humanity celebrated their impossible victory. They buried their dead, rebuilt their cities, and began studying the captured alien technology. Within a generation, they would build their first faster-than-light ship dot, and in quiet corners of the galaxy. In whispered conversations between species who had heard the stories, a new phrase entered the common language. It was a warning passed from elder to child, from trader to customer, from soldier to recruit. Beware the Death Worlders. They are coming.